Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Town Council Special Study Session. Roll call, please.
Mike Aurelio.
Present.
Brian Blazak.
Present.
Wayne Pondinas.
Present.
Michael Schilling.
Here.
Gerald Swetz.
Here.
David Westland.
Present.
And Beth Hernandez, present.
Okay. So I would like, first of all, to welcome our newest councilman, Mike Aurelio. Welcome, sir. I'll let you do a little introduction when we get into the regular meeting. So this is a study session. This is actually one of our first, quote, study sessions that we've done. I typically have put those in the middle of a regular special session, but I was advised that maybe it would be a good idea to do a study session. So that's what we're doing here tonight. We have basically two things on the agenda. One is the water sewer increase, and then also a presentation by the Lake Hills Master HOA regarding the camera installation. So the way I want to handle this is I'm going to, if Mike Bender is here, I'm going to ask him to come forward and make his presentation. And after that's done, we'll entertain questions from the audience. You don't need to sign in for this study session. It's kind of going to be an open forum, but if you could raise your hand, then I can call you forward and kind of do it that way so we can stay organized. So, sir.
All righty.
You could.
So here's just some copies if you guys eventually want to look it over down later on or whatever.
Thank you.
So I'll make it pretty quick. So obviously this has been going on for like 4 or 5 years.
Name and address for the record, please.
Michael Bender, 8947 Winding Trail. And this is Jesse Washington.
Washington, 10207 South Ranch in St. John.
He's on the board with us.
Okay,
at,
thank you,
Lake
gentlemen.
Hills. So 4 or 5 years ago, they tried doing this, and they bought some system. They installed it. A lot of the neighbors weren't happy with it because it was all sitting in somebody's basement. Blah, blah, blah. It got taken out. So when we started on board, we were like, we're going to do this the right way. So there's this flock system out of Georgia. Pretty much there'll be 2 cameras on all entrances. So coming in and going out, it could register cars going 75 miles per hour for 75 feet day or night. All solar power, and so there'll be 6 of them total. Over the last couple years since all this was going on, there's been 2 home burglaries, 1 grand theft auto, several auto break-ins, and 1 alleged attempt at child abduction. So when all this was going, we ran a poll on Town Square, which is our neighborhood, website. And there was 110 votes, 91 yeses, which was 82.7%, and 19 noes for 17%. So the other problem we've been running into, when you come into the main drive on Lake Hills Drive, there's where the old haunted house used to be and all that. Well, now that's a parking lot that's pretty much not used. So we've been cleaning it up every few weeks, and we've been finding like used condoms, broken bottles, some pipes, that people are smoking out of, just laying all over the place. So we're hoping this might deter people away from going to hang out in there. I brought it to some people's attention, trying to push it to maybe get a gate going through that parking lot at night that the police could come close it up, because when the neighborhood people are walking through there, there's some bad stuff going on. And I mean, I know my kid rides his bike over there, and he's picked up some weird stuff that you wouldn't want your kids playing with, as they're just going through. So we're hoping the cameras would help that out a little bit to deter people away. Stonegate, who is also connected to us, right when you come in on the Winding Trail entrance, there's how many houses in there? 9 houses.
8 houses, 9 lots.
8 houses, 9 lots. We talked to all them, and they're in 100% support of this. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, it's all encrypted, so we don't hold any of the footage. It all goes to a cloud that's run by a company in Georgia, and the police are the ones that would only get access to it for an open case investigation, correct?
Yeah.
So as long as there's an open case that someone files with the St. John Police Department, they could reach out to Atlanta where all this is stored and get the footage. And that's pretty much it, unless anybody has any questions about it.
Anybody?
You said you did a survey of your subdivision, and we had, what, 100 people?
We had 110 houses that voted.
110 houses? How many houses are in there total?
450 if you include all the townhomes and everybody else. So, and that was actually
That's
the
about
largest
20,
turnout.
20% of the
Right.
neighborhood?
And compared to most other polls, we normally get maybe 2%. So we're trying to bring it to everyone's attention to come to the meetings. We actually said we're going to raise the dues just to bring people in to pay attention that, like, hey, we're trying to do something, you know? I mean, people are upset at the raising the dues, but we, of course, knocked that down as the first thing of the meeting, is we declined that, so. You know, we were trying to get everyone aware. You know, everyone I talk to always seems like they want it.
Yeah, the
So.
biggest concern before we found out, can you guys hear me?
No, you need to come close to the microphone so whoever's online can also hear.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the biggest concern when we did that poll, for the folks who, you know, were in the 10% or the 9% who were against it, was the privacy piece. And the way we fixed that was, as opposed to just doing a camera system, to his point, is that it's now a cloud service. And the beauty of it is that it's not just cameras, it's a platform. So it's got AI built into it. So it's not just cameras, but it's the license plate readers. So our residents, folks from Stonegate, they could actually exclude their vehicles. So if they register their vehicles can be extracted. They won't be a part of the recordings that are captured and kept for 30 days. The only other part that I wanted to add was the intent right now, our plan is nothing is going on St. John property, so it's all Lake Hills Master HOA owned property where all these cameras are going to be put up. We're not going to run any, we're not connecting into any power from the town. It's all solar powered. We're not trenching any lines for communication. It's cellular, so it uses LTE to communicate and store the things in the area. The one challenge we have is we can install the cameras on our property because we have 3 entrances, and across 3 entrances we own the left and the right curbs, and we can put the cameras there. What would be more optimal is if we put them on the island. So every entrance that we have has an island. When a developer built the association or the community, what he did was he gave the islands back to the town. Although we still maintain them, so we landscape them, we irrigate them, we maintain them, we pick up the trash the kids throw out there. So we're doing all that stuff, but we can't put the cameras there, or at least based upon the last experience that the prior board tried to do, because it's town-owned property. So the one request that I had is to see if we can get those islands back. So I'm sure you're not going to answer me now, but I at least wanted to put it in the record that I'm making the ask. That would allow us to put the cameras on the island, which is the most optimal place to put them. And also we can landscape around them so they would blend in more than having 2 poles standing on either side of the island. It just aesthetically would be much better. And we can answer any other questions we have on this. We've been working on this for about a year, so.
Yeah, a couple of things, I guess. One of my concerns would be, you talked about the reporting feature.
Yep.
So I thought that these were going to just be in the cloud and only be accessed if there was crime or things like that. Is there actually somebody that's going to see monthly reports?
No, you explained it exactly correct. It's a cloud-based service. The only time it's accessed is if the police come with a case, and they wouldn't come to me, they would go to our management company, who would give the police access to view whatever specific incident and whatever specific time period that they had requested. We're not going to give our credentials over to the police. The police actually have to come, and our management company would extract that data for them.
Okay.
Nobody.
So the management company, is that part of your HOA, or is that the company who's actually running the cloud
I
system?
apologize. The management company is a company called Associa, and what they are community managers. So 3 different entities. So there's the HOA, which Mike and I represent. There's this third-party company called Flock Safety. That's the name of the company, flocksafety.com, if anybody wants to look them up. And then there is the management company that we've been using for, I don't know, a few years. They're the folks who we use to, send out the, assessment fee notifications and manage the budgets and all the rest. Is that clearer?
Yes, thank you. The other thing, I guess, that was my biggest concern was public access or the reporting
Yeah,
feature.
yeah,
That
that was
was kind of concerning to me.
And I appreciate it. Sorry for talking over you. I appreciate that. And that was the biggest concern we had. And that's the reason why we went from, like Mike had opened up with, just standard cameras with a recorder in somebody's basement. Nobody on the board, nobody in the community has access. only the management company are going to have the key to get in. The only thing we're going to publish on our website, potentially, or that town square thing that Mike was talking about, is the access log, so that our community members, they can see who has accessed it and when. So sort of an audit log, and that would
Okay.
be it.
All right, no, I'm good with that. Brian, Mike, any questions? No, all right, so I'm going to open it up to the public if there's any.
I got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you say that the residents that live in the subdivision itself, the whole HOA, they can take their license plate out? Why would you do that?
Well, the
I
intent.
mean, just say there's some kids that are in the family that may be kind of rowdy, and they come in, well, they don't have a plate, well, you don't know if they came or went, and that could be at the time of a crime. I would have everybody's plate in there so you can see who's coming and going, whether or not they're, in your neighborhood or not. I think that's a better way of doing it.
Yeah, you make a good case there. We're just trying to balance privacy. So this protects us from threats from external threats. Excuse me, internal threats are still the problem. Not sick, just talking.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you sometimes the crime is actually happening from within the community, in the association or in the neighborhood. And I think that everybody, if you're going to do it, everybody's plate should be in there all the time.
I 100% agree with you. It's just a balancing act.
Because that can hinder with the police report. If the police come in there, okay, what was stolen? There was a TV. Well, we don't see any vehicles.
Yep.
And if that's like a ghost going in and out,
Yep.
I mean, that could be the person that somebody in your neighbor could be taking your stuff.
Yeah.
Could be, but this is also people that are coming into the subdivision. So even just seeing the camera there and seeing the sign, it's gonna push people away compared to coming in and do something. If something happens internally, a lot of people have the doorbell, the Ring doorbell, that you could access that. So if my neighbor gets something stolen, I know I have 10 cameras all around my house, and I could share that footage all I want. This is more or less from people coming from other communities, from other states, from all around coming in. We're not worried about our internal family. I mean, that's what neighbors are for, right? To look out for each other. So I'm not worried about my friend's son stealing my TV. If that does happen, shame on him. Hopefully his parents are paying attention and realize it. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I just don't fully agree with it. But, yeah.
No, I appreciate the opinion. So we'll certainly share it with the rest of the community.
And then you said you had, you represent your whole neighborhood, but you don't have any signatures. You got a few people, and I'm sure that they're all in favor of this, but you should have had maybe a petition with, 400 names or 300 names or whatever, give everybody in the neighborhood an opportunity.
Well, that's why we had the poll.
Right.
That's why we
Did it go to everybody's house?
Well, we had 2 open meetings. We sent
Okay.
newsletters to every house. We gave them our website to go on to look at. We showed them how to work town square. And then we had another meeting through Zoom, and we have told as many people as we can. So the people that cared about it came on and voted.
To your point, we notified everyone, and
Okay.
for the folks who are not computer literate to get on our fancy website stuff, they had the opportunity just to call our community manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe to follow up on Wayne's question, so you had mentioned there was a few crimes that you were aware of. Do you have any details on those, whether they were internal or they were outside the
They were
subdivision?
from outside because they ended up finding the vehicles over by University of Chicago, over on the, whatever neighborhood that is, Washington Park or something, is where they end up finding one of the family's cars. The people actually went into their house, grabbed the keys out of the woman's purse, went into the garage, and stole the car. And that was after breaking in another car down the street and opening it up and opening the garage to get in. So, I mean, there's been things happening, and that's what we're looking out for, is those other people coming in.
Right, and I can see how it can make some sense, makes, I think, more sense to me to actually have that choice of not having the internal license plates
Right.
copied, because if it's
Some-
internal crime, the cameras are on the outside of the subdivision, right? They gotta go in and out, so if it's internal, they never leave and get recorded anyways,
Correct.
so.
Right.
Good point.
Okay.
The only other thing I just wanted to make sure I had a next step on is if the council is willing to consider providing us back rights to the islands, or, ownership of the islands. I don't know what the process is for.
I don't think that can happen. I thought maybe that those were parcels, but I don't think they are. I think they're actually part of the roadway. Mr. Westland, did you and I have this discussion a while back, or was that with Mr. Decker?
I don't believe we had that.
Okay. All right, that was with Mr. Decker then, that I had talked to him
Yeah,
about this.
if they're part of the roadway, that becomes a little bit problematic.
Right, right, okay.
Yeah, 'cause it's-
Would there be any consideration or reconsideration of us installing the cameras on the islands, even if they're town-owned?
It's something that we can talk about.
Yep.
Because from my understanding, and I'll have to double check, but I believe we can grant you a license, which would give you permission to do so. But I'm gonna have to check with that and make sure. And then it's gonna be up to feedback from your neighborhood. So I put this on this meeting tonight, knowing that I was planning on bringing it up at the next regular council meeting, which would be in 2 weeks. So that's going to give your community an opportunity to address it, whether they're in favor or against it. I don't like acting on anything quickly. I just as soon take the time and give the public the opportunity to speak. So that's kind of my plan.
Yeah, makes sense. And then, is there something that you guys could also maybe think about is with that parking lot? With the random cars that park there overnight, there's no lighting, there's not even a sign that says no parking, and it's, it's on the park, so even if it's like a dusk till dawn thing, no cars allowed. I mean, there's, a police patrol there every once in a while anyway, so if there's at
I
least
think at
some
one
kind
time
of
there was a sign that said no overnight parking,
Right,
but
yeah, anything to just
Along the
kind
park.
of, just to kind of push
Park
away,
out.
yeah, just like a normal park, so. Just to take into consideration, I don't want anybody getting hurt,
Okay.
being liable.
The cars that are parking there, they belong to the residents on Lakeshore Drive, or?
In Lake Hills Drive, in some cases, and we've had all different types of things there. We've had people park RVs in there and boats, and it's a public park, so public
Yeah.
comes in and just uses it.
Okay. Any comments, questions from the audience? And you just, if you didn't sign in, you can still raise your hand. I'll call you forward. Yes, would you come forward?
Number of residents who look.
Can you do the microphone? Because I want people who are listening virtually to hear.
It's Liz Sharon, 8818 Hillside Drive. Wondering, is there a certain amount of people that you're looking for to say yes to it? Because I want to know how many doors I'm going to have to knock on.
The more the better. That's all I can tell you. It
Okay.
depends on how many come to speak against it as well. So
Okay.
you're going to convince 5 voters, so there's more than,
Okay, got it.
For clarity, is this something that requires approval if we're doing it all on HOA-owned property?
That I'm not sure. Mr. Westland?
No, I mean, if they're doing it on their property, that's between them and the members of that HOA. If you are correct, and you and I did talk about a license,
Okay.
that is I think the appropriate, although there are alternatives, that's the appropriate document if you were going to consider the islands.
Yeah, so that was the thing that I was hoping for, the consideration, the vote, if there were to be one, is to be whether, for placement of the cameras on the island, if we can get that license.
Okay.
But having your guys' support obviously helps too, with all the neighbors and everything.
Sure.
When they come and attack the 10 or 12 that don't want them, You're like, oh, well, we have some of their support.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. And we'll go on to the next item. I'm gonna kind of take these all together, 4, 5, and 6, which is the discussion on the water rate increase, the sewer rate increase, and also the waterworks bond, because they really all kind of tie in together. Are you, Wayne, are you ready to talk about this at all, or you want me to kind of cover some of the highlights?
Well, you cover the highlights and see where you go.
All right, all right. So, our water usage continues to grow, not just in the matter of as the residents grow, our water usage continues to grow, but I think it's growing on an average about 40 million gallons per year over the last few years. Every summer, we get into summer sprinkling time, where we take care of watering the grass, watering the flowers, and we spend about $500,000 a year buying water from Cherville. because we just use so much more water in the summertime than we do in the winter. So we're looking at an increase of water usage, and we have to find solutions to do that. One of them is through improving our water distribution system. I see Eric from Baker Tilly is with us this evening. Thank you, Eric, for being here. So we're looking at a water distribution system that needs to be upgraded. In many cases, we're looking at taking out a bond to do a lot of this work and kind of spread the payments out over a number of years. That bond will include the new SCADA system, which is our monitoring, distribution, for our water systems, our wells, our lift stations for which are sewage and things like that. So that needs improvement. We've got a number of water mains that need to be upgraded throughout the town. We're going to look at adding 2 new additional wells on the east side of town, and that will give us increased water usage as well. The estimated cost of that Baker Tilly did for us in their studies would look like it would take an average of a family of 2, which is 4,000 gallons per month. Your water and sewer bill combination will go from $36 up to $42. So that's like a $6 increase. It comes out to about 30%. Family of 4 would be doubled that. So if your water bill is $72, it would probably jump to $84. I guess the question I had for you, Eric, is our water utility and is our wastewater systems, are they self-sustaining financially? I've been getting, some of the stuff I've been reading is, I've been getting mixed answers. I can't hear you, Eric. You're going to have to. No, not yet. Give me just a second.
Try it now.
Can you hear me now?
There
Yes.
you go.
Okay. Sorry about that as well. We were, I think, stuck in the waiting room for a minute. But yes, the question of your water and sewer utilities are both enterprise funds of the town, so they really are standalone entities, standalone really businesses, if you will. Right now, based on the proposed sewer increase and the water increase, they would then be standing on their own 2 feet, funding not only their operational costs, but also the proposed debt service that you were just going through for the new project, as well as, and I think this sometimes has gotten lost in the discussion, even besides the new well houses, the mains, the SCADA, there's significantly other projects over time that need done. And this rate adjustment also creates a revenue source to pay for those, what we call pay as you go, out of the water utility and sewage work separately.
Okay. So, as I was trying to analyze what this rate increase was going to be, it's been a number of years, 14 years, I think, since we've had a rate increase. And if I think about 14 years ago, and I think our cost of our employees continues to climb every year. The employees' costs for insurances go up. The cost of vehicles are a lot more expensive now than they were 14 years ago. Our equipment tends to wear out and it needs to be replaced. So it's really not a surprise that a gallon of water costs a little more money than it did 14 years ago. In fact, if you want to go to the grocery store at a gallon, what a gallon of water costs over there now compared to what it was is up significantly as well. I think there's also a lot more requirements involved as far as treating the water, reporting, treating the sewage and things like that, additional treatment costs, testing, compliances. These are all things that affect the money that we need to spend in order to keep our utility running properly. So that's kind of an overview. Can you fill in some gaps for me, Wayne, or did I cover all the major ones?
You did pretty good. There's all, I mean, anything that's water-related, sewer-related is expensive, and it keeps going up. To do wells 3 and 5, $90,000. In the process of doing that, well 7 had a problem with an oil leak. That had to be pulled. That's like 10 or 12,000. So there's a lot of money being spent. And like Jerry said, you go to the grocery store, prices are going up, you have to pay it. But yeah, you're doing good.
Okay. So then, one of the questions that because I've gotten a number of emails recently and some messages, and one of the questions is, why don't you make the developers pay for this? And by statute, you can only make the developers pay for so much. I mean, when they put in a development, they pay for all of the infrastructure that goes in there. They pay for all their water mains, they pay for all the sewer lines, and they pay for, all of that stuff. They're required to do that. It doesn't cost us to do that. We've got wells 8 and 9, if I remember correctly, Wayne. I think the developer actually is donating the land for that, and also is going to do a little bit of the connection for us.
I think he's got the land and he's doing the electric. 3-phase electric is expensive. I think it's $350,000 for that.
Right. So I think we looked at this, and I think this entire council has been pretty good when it comes to not spending money we don't have and trying to keep our money under control. As a matter of fact, I just got my tax bill the other day, and I took a look at it, and my property values went up a little bit, but the tax rate actually went down. And that's the amount of money that comes from each of you individuals. That's our goal, is to not have taxes go up. Our goal is to keep property values up, to keep your tax dollars down, and make this a great community to live. But this has been around a long time. We've got a lot of water mains. We've got a lot of sewers that need to be upgraded and replaced. We need to move them as roads get wider. So there's a lot of expenses involved, and I think this was probably one of the most responsible ways for us to be able to get this done within the town without raising your taxes. Yes, there's going to be a water rate increase, but I don't really think that's that significant.
Jerry,
Yes.
can I add one point to that?
Please.
You hit on the question about developers and new development. I think it should be highlighted that water and sewer both bring in annually probably $500,000 to $600,000 each from new development in the form of system development charges. So anytime a new house or development goes up, there is money that those individuals are paying as they connect to your utility, and that money is being used for capital infrastructure, et cetera. That revenue source is really the primary reason you've been able to go this long without a rate increase. But as Wayne and you just hit the nail on the head, eventually you grow so much you have to reinvest quite a bit back into your system. You're to the point now where the growth is not paying for the capital improvements that you have out there to kind of catch up. So you definitely are getting material money from those developments as well.
Thank you. Gentlemen, any additional comments?
I have one question on there. You had mentioned that, so it's roughly a 30% increase in cost for the water.
Water yes.
Water and sewer. So,
Water 30%, sewer 10%.
So what was mentioned is there's a pay-as-you-go increase over time. Is there a breakdown of that percentage of what is the pay-as-you-go versus what's being paid for the upgrades presently? Just so I can have an understanding of that.
Would you like me to answer that, Jerry?
Yes, please.
So I'll take each utility separately. And sewage, where there's not a new bond issue being done, so this is really just the 10% increase, or about $2 for that family of 2 to 3 that Jerry talked about. Included in that rate adjustment will be approximately $300,000 on an annual basis for what I'm referring to as pay-as-you-go capital. Now, what happens over time is, okay, you have $300,000 in year one, maybe $300,000 in year two. As you go longer and longer and the cost of treating sewer goes up and employee costs and so on and so forth, you start to eat into that amount. But where we're starting at today is a $300,000 a year for needed capital and infrastructure replacement. In water, where we're talking about the bond issue, the rate adjustment not only is funding the bond issue, which is, give you the number real quick, approximately an $8 million bond issue for some of these larger projects that Jerry and Wayne I know mentioned, but also then there's $400,000 a year for other miscellaneous projects that have been identified, main breaks, main extensions, so on and so forth, pay as you go, also built into this.
Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Mike, Wayne?
You know, one thing you have to look at, it's an aging system, and going on the sewer side, you know, we have about 15 lift stations, and 5 of them in the end of this next decade are going to be at the end of their life expectancy. You know, when they build them, they build them to last, you know, 30 to 40 years. Well, they were put in the 80s, and those are coming, you know, in the next 10 years, those are going to need to be replaced. And they were paid by developers when they were put in back then in the 80s, but here we are now, it's our system, we have to keep that up. You know, when you hit the toilet to flush the water, it's got to go somewhere, and
Hopefully.
Yeah.
you know, that's another thing you have to look at. What do we have coming in the next 10 to 15 years that's going to be coming to the end of its life expectancy from when it was, you know, put in? You know, some of the water mains that are on top priority here, they were put in the 40s when the original water system was put in St. John, and they're at the end of their life expectancy 10 years ago.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Anything else, Wayne? I think Eric made a good point, talking about the money that the developers pay. I mean, in our building permit, I believe there's $1,500 that comes in for water system development.
Yeah, there's $1,500 for water, $1,500 for sewer, $1,836 for parks, with a soon-to-be impact fee coming in at $2,463 per house.
For the roads.
For roads, that's
Yeah.
for roads only.
Yes. You know, so it's like we already have one of the most expensive building permits in the county. So if people are going to move here and build a home, they want to be here, and we want to make it good for them. Beth, anything to add?
No.
No? All right. I'll open up to the public if there's any comments, any questions from anybody in the audience.
Good evening, Joan McInerney, 9405 West 90th Lane. So, I guess to Eric, I pose my question. So, Eric, if the two sewer and water were not standalone or self-sustaining, I think is how you refer to it, where were the additional funds coming to then to sustain the two water and sewer? Like if their
Primarily
expenses were
from-
more than the revenues they were bringing in, where were they getting the extra dollars from?
Sure. Great question. Really from their savings account, if you will. They have cash reserves in both utility, and anytime you have a negative cash flow, really what you're doing is you're dipping in and you're starting to deplete those reserve amounts. It got to the point as well with the sewer utility that there was actually a loan that was made between water and sewer that's being paid back as well to kind of make each whole and stand alone. But that shows you that it's been really long overdue that the rate increase is done, so that they don't have to loan money back and forth and kind of get through a bad year or a good year. But really, they've just been using cash reserves.
Okay, and so then with the amount of increase that we're going to be taking, then does that allow us not only to get to that break-even point, but does it allow us to have additional funds for more maintenance that we may need to incur and capital expenditures then?
Yes, that's when I alluded to the $300,000 a year in sewer and $400,000 a year in water. that is really outside of these large projects we just talked about. That's really for additional smaller projects that are already identified, main breaks, maintenance, upkeep in the system, really just reinvestment back into your system, because especially as fast as you all are growing and the age of your system, we know, and the superintendents know, that there's plenty of projects that really need done and will need done over the next 5 years as well.
And that's enough of an increase to be able to sustain that amount of all that infrastructure work that has to be done? Or are we looking at additional increases that may need to be taken over time?
We projected out 5 years in our study. We project these rate increases will sustain you at a minimum of those 5 years. Now, I don't have a crystal ball. If growth continues to explode and doesn't pay quite for itself, maybe there would need to be something, but based on current trends the last several years, the capital needs identified by the water and sewer superintendents and the council, we anticipate this will get you through, at a minimum, those next 5 years.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ryan Daniel, 14285 West 93rd Place. The question is, so we're gonna, if we do a rate increase, are you gonna continue to buy the water from the same place, or is it gonna be a better quality of water than what we currently have? Because I know I've been here about 5 years, and I'd put in a whole softener system and replace some stuff. So just kind of curious if it's gonna be the same water or better, different water.
It's gonna be the same water.
It's well water.
Okay.
I will say this, that when the last time, well, when Steve Kill was here, we were doing the initial drilling for the wells on the east gates, and he mentioned that wells 8 and 9 that we'll be putting in, the water there was actually clear, so clear that it's going to require, I think, a different filtration system. Is that correct, Wayne?
It's not so much clear as it has, I think it's phosphorus in it, and it smells like raw eggs. So there's going to be an expense to take one of the tanks in the treatment plant and the gates and change the media in there, because it's like a big softener. That's going to cost about $280,000. So that'll take that smell out, and then we can put it in the system to send out. It's not going to hurt anybody, but it's just that smell, and that's what that's going to cost. Plus, we still got to run the water line into that building.
Right, okay. So, yeah, the impression that I got, though, was that the water coming out of the new wells were going to be actually better than the water that we're pulling up on the other side of town.
The gallons per minute are going to be high for well 8, and well 9 is supposed to even be a better producer.
Okay. So hopefully, as it gets treated, it should be good. We'll depend on our water operators for that. Anybody else? Okay, so this rate increase, the resolutions, the ordinances that go along with it will be part of the next town council meeting on the 28th. We actually will vote on these ordinances, and actually will be a public hearing. So there still will be time for public comment at that time on the water, sewer, and also the bond issues. So if we have nothing else, last call, then I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Is there support for that?
Second?
Okay.
Thank you, Wayne. Eric, thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Eric.
All in favor of adjourn, say aye.
Aye.